Robak is the Executive Director of Melody of Life Foundation, an author and certified neuro-linguistic programming practitioner for skill set life coaching. Please help me welcome Lucas Robak. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Just like Keith said, my name is Lucas Robak, and I am with Skill Set Life Coaching. There's a lot of information that we're going to be covering today, so if you could please hold all of your questions to the end just to make sure that we get through this information and you're able to get more value out of it. A quick disclaimer is neuro-linguistic programming, that's otherwise known as NLP, is an emerging field. Since its creation in the 1970s, it has evolved leaps and bounds from the input of many different experts. What we once have known has changed. Some of what you will learn will sound familiar, and some of it will be unfamiliar. The information may even contradict what your opinion perceives to be true. NLP is a vast field with many different layers to it. This presentation educates only on a portion of NLP which will benefit your business and your own personal communication skills. And you're like, oh, what is NLP? Like I said, it's neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro, that's neurological. That is your thinking process. The L, linguistic, that's language. These are your words that you speak to yourself and to others. And P for programming. That is your behavior, all your past experiences leading up to your current behavior. Another way of looking at NLP is it's the science of the mind to successfully achieve concise results. There are 11 different steps to this model, and they are not just sequential, but they're simultaneous as well. You may go through just the first 4 steps and then jump straight to step 9. It all depends on the prospect. You might even go over numerous steps multiple times depending upon the prospect. Alright, so just jumping into it right away. Step 1 is sensory acuity of the times. It's the cause and effect relationship, otherwise known as reasons versus results. You're either going to go off and give a ton of reasons why you're not making more money, or you're going to go off and get results. You have to know what the economy is doing in the world around you, how the world is operating, how it affects your business, how it affects your client's business, and how your business is able to serve your client depending upon the economy. And then step 2 is strategy and value elicitation. You're able to do this numerous different ways. One of it is, hey Tim, I really like your coat. How did you decide to wear that today?
Went on my pants.
Go with your pants.
Jaeger animals.
That question will allow you to understand how a person processes information. When I asked Tim that, he actually looked down at his coat, so I lost the opportunity to see where his eyes went. When you ask a question on how people make certain decisions, they're either going to go in a specific direction. This is known as the representational systems, or VAK. VAK is visual, audio, or kinesthetic. Just remember this rule of thumb. Don't worry too much about constructed versus recalled. Just know that visual is when their eyes go up, auditory is when their eyes go to the side, kinesthetic is down and to the right, and then auditory digital is down to the left. Auditory digital means that they're talking to themselves. And it's self-talk. So when somebody's a visual person, now you're able to change your language to speak to them. You're like, oh, do you see what I'm saying? Just picture this. If they're auditory, do you hear what I'm saying? Just hear your client say this. Kinesthetic is feeling. Do you feel what I'm saying? Just imagine what it would feel like. And then auditory digital is, does it make sense? Oh, doesn't this make sense to you? Then step 3 is knowing your product or service. When someone comes up to you and says, hey, what is it that you do? What they're really saying is, please, sell me something. I'm an executive director of a nonprofit. Our vision is to provide all the proven forms of recommended treatment for people living with MS. Is that something of value to you or not? What that was, it took me less than 20 seconds to say that because our attention spans are very minimal. It was less than 35 words. It was actually 20 words. I described what it is that I did. It gave an accurate explanation of the benefits of people with multiple sclerosis. I chunked up, meaning I limited my jargon. I used ambiguous language. And you probably have numerous questions after me saying that. KISS. Keep it simple, silly. I'm able to tell that to a child, and they can go off and tell that to somebody else. And I've actually tried that and it works. The simpler you keep it, the more likely it is that they're going to retain it and tell other people. The sizzle. You go to a hibachi restaurant not for the food. You're going there for the atmosphere. To sit down at a table and have the chef cook in front of you so that you can actually hear your food sizzle. A nominalization. That's taking a verb and turning it into a noun. You're able to do that with adjectives as well, but in this model, you're turning a verb into a noun. There are a lot of blogs out there online. If you Google verb to nominalization, there are blogs that will actually walk you through the process and give you numerous examples. Yes?
Can you give us an example?
The one that I was saying is, I used our vision. That's instead of saying we are working towards. We are working towards, I turned it into our vision. And then give them an opening to say no. You can ask the question, is this of value to you or not? Are you interested in or not? That's the key word, or not. Never, ever push for a yes. Why do you think that you should push for the no? Anybody? Why would you want to push for a no?
Because conversation.
If you get a no right away, you don't waste your time or their time, and you're able to move on and be more productive.
Yes.
I was going to say, if you get the no, you might have a chance to overcome their negativity by explaining if they say no.
There's a difference between a no and an objection. We'll get to the 4 objections later, but a no is a no. Like David said, it's going to save you time. You can sit there and push for a yes for 2 hours, and you just wasted 2 hours because they're not going to buy because they kept saying no, and yet you keep pushing. This is also sales with integrity. When somebody says no to you, and you're like, oh, well, thank you very much, I really appreciate it. It's more likely that they're going to give a referral to you for somebody where your services will benefit them, rather than somebody that you go up and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. They're not going to like you or your service. And step 4 is establishing rapport. The University of Pennsylvania in 1970 conducted a communication study which is the premise behind NLP rapport building. 55% of it is body movements. And to break that down even further, we can talk about physiology. These are your facial expressions. You want to match and mirror their facial expressions. Notice their forehead muscles. Notice their eyebrows, the eye muscles, the cheek muscles, the corners of their mouth, their nostrils, even their throat. You want to match and mirror that yourself. The blinking. The idea is to never witness the other person blink. When you're blinking in unison, you're building rapport. One of the best ways to build rapport is through breathing. Notice their breathing. Exhale, a good rule of thumb is exhaling means that they're talking. So, gauge that, get on page and start inhaling and exhaling with your prospect. Notice the location from where their breath is coming. Is it coming from their stomach, their abdomen, or their chest? Once you notice that, then you're able to match that as well. 7% of rapport building is through words. We already talked about the representational systems, and we're going to be talking about strategies as well, but the main thing is the keywords. When you want to match their keywords, repeat what they say. If your prospect is like, oh, keep saying son of a bitch, well, guess what? You guys now get to say son of a bitch in your sales presentation to that person because you're building rapport with them. Whatever keywords that they say, you repeat right back to them. As well as the voice. The timbre is the quality of the voice. Is it raspy? Is it clear? Now, if they're sick and they're stuffed up, you really don't want to match that because it's insulting. The volume of the voice. You're not going to go in talking to somebody at this level when they're talking like this loud. And you're not going to talk to somebody this loud when they're talking this loud. It's a matter of matching their tone, tempo, timbre, and the volume of their voice. And step 5 is metaphors and storytelling. Just this simple step alone will increase your sales. The idea of well-constructed metaphor is going to confuse the conscious mind. When you deliver the metaphor, it's better to have them thinking, why did you just tell me that? You are crazy. That was just absolutely pointless. That was just the stupidest thing I heard. You would rather have them think about it than for the conscious mind to step in and screw it all up. I once heard a story of this one guy. Beautiful house. He had these awesome red cherry wood hardwood floors. He kept them very clean, polished, and when the sun came in, it would just glisten. They were perfect. He took so much pride in it. And one day he was walking around and he heard a squeak in the floor. Well, he goes straight to the yellow pages and he starts looking up different carpenters, calling up, getting quotes. And after numerous carpenters come in, the squeak is still there. So he calls up a master carpenter and he comes in, walks in, finds a squeak, pulls out one nail out of his pocket, pulls the hammer out of his tool belt. With one swing of the hammer, squeak is gone. Master carpenter says to the guy, hey, that'll be $1,000. The guy's like, $1,000? Give me a detailed receipt. So as he's looking at the receipt, he's like, 1 penny for the nail, $999.99 to know exactly where to put that nail. Step 6 is asking questions. When you're asking questions, you're interested in the other person, not interesting. There's billions of people in this world who are all interesting. Your job is not to be interesting. Your job is to be interested. And when you're asking questions, you want to discover a lot of different things. Now, you're trying to discover their internal representation. Their internal representation is your perception. There's 30 people in this room, and there's 30 different perceptions on this slide right here alone. And through asking questions, you're able to discover their internal representation on this slide. When you're in sales, you want to find out their decision-making strategy. So one great question to ask is, just suppose for a moment that you can have it. What do you need to do to get it? And maybe even by this point, you already know what it is and the outcome is, so that you're able to incorporate their language in it. Then step 7, we already began this process in step 6 by asking questions. Now you want to find that need. And once you find that need, this is where you're going to propose a solution to the client's problem. And then ABC, always be closing. You're able to close right here if you want. There's numerous different closes. Here are a couple. An inconspicuous close would be, can you see any value to you and you wanting to make more money in less time? Then you have the conditional close, which is it fair to say that if we increased your sales, then that would be valuable to you? Or my personal favorite is the tie-down question. Then it would be valuable to you to learn a proven sales technique, wouldn't it? At any point, you get a no. Thank them for saving you a ton of time and move on and sell to somebody else. And step 8 is establishing value. We've already done point 1 on here. We found a need or an opportunity. And then here we're going to establish the value of a solution. And then we're going to link the need to the solution. And then after you link that need to the solution, you're going to link the need to your product or service. And when you're doing this, you're going to be talking in terms of their strategies, their values, and their keywords. You can use metaphors here, or you can just flat out tell them. What would happen if you increase your sales by 20% next month? Compared to my NLP trainer, I charge $20,000 less per day. He's already working with people that are making buku bucks. I work with people in order for them to begin making buku bucks. And step 9, close, ask for the sale. There are times where you're able to just jump right into step 9. Other times, like I said, sequential yet simultaneous as well. There are a lot of different ways to close. You've already seen 3. Here are 3 more. You have the alternative choice question, where you give them different choices. Are you interested in this individual package or the sales team package? Do Wednesdays work best or Thursdays? And then the Ben Franklin balance sheet close. That's where you make a T-chart on a piece of paper. You write down yes on one side, no on the other. And you are the one that are listing all the reasons why they said, yes, I want to buy. And you want to come up with 8 or 9. And then when it comes to filling out the no column, slide the pen and paper over to them and tell them to list all the reasons why no, they are not going to buy. Chances are they're only going to come up with 2 or 3 because there are 4 objections. And then the sharp angle close. You're going to need to feel like your best friend to be able to pull this one out. Hey, can I get your credit card? Hey, just write me a check for $10,000 and then we can go on our way. And then step 10, be quiet. When you're talking, you're giving them a lot of information. And you want them to be listening to you. So when somebody else is talking, they expect you to give them the same courtesy and listen to them. Never interrupt anybody. Like, why would I put this slide up here?
Oh, because a lot of people talk a yes into a no.
Very true. Any other reasons why you want to be quiet? What else do you gain from silence?
More information.
More information?
You can't listen while you're talking.
First person to talk loses.
Yep.
Demonstrate respect.
Demonstrate perspective?
Respect.
Or respect.
You can get a decision from silence.
Yes, yeah. Like, you guys are all correct as well, yes.
You need to give them time to process all the information you give them.
Mm-hmm. It's also uncomfortable. When you're talking to somebody, you're putting a lot of pressure on them. A lot of sound vibrations are being passed around, and all of a sudden, you stop talking, silence creates a vacuum. Somebody's going to talk, and it's not going to be you. And then our last step is handling the 4 objections. Now, an objection is not a no. An objection is simply an objection that you're able to get around. When you hear an objection, now you're getting into a battle of linguistics. Oh, Lucas, like, it works for everybody else, but it's just not gonna work for me. Really? Because one woman, after only learning the basics of the first 4 steps, increased her sales. Lucas, like, this is, I just don't have enough money. I know this is about making money, but I don't have enough. Well, how much did it cost you not to take the sales training? I just don't have enough time, like, to put all this time in the training to save time. I don't have the time to actually do that, Lucas. Well, that's exactly why you need to take the sales training. I just don't believe you. It sounds like words coming out of Bob Schmidt's mouth. Like, come on. This is like, really? You're not just trying to convince yourself, are you? If you look in the brochure, I listed down the 4 objections in there as well. There's different ways to answer it. It all depends on the person and the rapport that you're building, as well as what you guys have already discussed prior to the objections. That concludes the subconscious sales model. Next month, I will be back here at the WBO for the special morning workshop, doing an interactive goal creation workshop. It's going to be using NLP, so it's a whole new way to look at goals as well as to create them. Everybody will be walking out with, at minimum, 1 personal goal and 1 professional goal. And that's going to be starting at 10 a.m. next month. And then also, as I already mentioned, that I'm an executive director of Melody of Life Foundation. We have our 6th annual 9-pin tap bowling tournament on April 25th. You're going to be a sponsor. You're going to donate a raffle. You're going to create a 5-person team. contact me and I will get you the information that you need. For the Wisconsin business owners, I have a special for the sales model, but please hold all your questions for that. Just talk to me after. I'm going to be sitting at this table. So I will be here until about 2 o'clock. Other than that, does anybody have any questions for me?
Who do you recommend as best person to listen to about this besides you?
Besides me, like about this model or NLP?
This whole, I mean, a lot of this stuff, Brian Tracy comes to mind. He's got one that's like 50 ways to close or 100 ways to close. Puppy dog close, all kinds of closing techniques.
Probably Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins is good.
Yeah, Tony Robbins is great for NLP. If you want to learn more about this model, I suggest Dr. Matt James from the Empowerment Partnership. And he was the trainer that I was speaking of. That he's the one that he trained me on this.
Matt James.
Dr. Matt James. You can find him on YouTube, NLP.com.
Amazon, Audible.
He does have some books out on Amazon. Can't speak of which ones, but I know that he does.
Is he still out of Hawaii, Lucas?
What was that?
Does he still work out of Hawaii?
Yes, he does. He does trainings in California. Those are like the closest ones.
Yeah, he does a lot of Huna healing workshops too.
Yeah, the Huna.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Have you taken Huna? This is a conversation for later.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
All right. Yes, maybe.
Can you go back to the slide that has the face on it, just so we can all look at it a little longer and really understand it? Could you walk us through that one more time? Because that is very powerful. And I even saw something earlier in our morning session. Alicia did something while she was sharing her mentoring, and I caught it. When she was referring to her mentor in the past, she would shift her eyes to the left. And one of the things I learned about NLP was that when somebody's speaking about the past, they look to the left, like we read left to right. And when they are thinking of the future, they look to the right. Okay. And I think that that's a really valuable thing. You demonstrated it beautifully. So everybody needs to look at that video on YouTube. Let me get it up. This I have seen work miracles. You can read people, you know right where they are, and you can get in sync with them. It's a tool I use, and I've seen other people use very well. And it's just another clue for me. That's how I use it.
It's also great at the poker table as well.
I'm not good at poker, so that's funny.
Actually, it can save your marriage.
Really?
You know, it sounds trite, but, you know, there are some situations where, you know, you come home and your spouse says, I just don't feel you love me anymore. And you're like, what? I sent you flowers for Valentine's Day. I just took you to dinner, you know, on our anniversary. I did this, I did this, I did this. And then she looks at you and says, when was the last time you said you loved me? And the whole thing is that the way that person is receiving is auditory. The way the person who's giving is visual.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're doing everything right, everything by the book, they're not receiving it the way that you think they are. And you know, it's an extremely powerful concept in selling, but it's a powerful concept just in everyday relationships.
And you're able to tell, not just through the eyes, you can even be able to tell the person's representational systems just over the phone. What words are they using? Are they saying, oh yeah, it makes sense. I see what you're saying. Oh, I can see that happening. Oh, I can hear that. I can feel that. They're telling you what representational systems that they use. As well as you're able to tell just by watching the person breathe. An auditory person is going to breathe from the chest. And not an auditory, forgive me on that one. A visual person is breathing from the chest. Auditory is from the abdomen. And then a kinesthetic person is from the stomach. So just by knowing where they're breathing from, you're able to tell, oh, that's their representational system. Any other questions?
What else can you do with NLP or NPL?
NLP. There's a lot of different things that you're able to do with NLP. Like I said, this is just different layers you're able to do. There's the language aspect is speaking in different models. There's a lot of different models that you're able to do to be able to help people install new strategies, which we covered briefly here. There's also other techniques where you're able to change your behaviors, change your perceptions on behaviors, to bust limiting beliefs. You can elicit certain states of mind on command. There's it's a wide array of things that you're able to do with NLP in order to catapult you forward and keep moving forward. Yes.
Children, that's what you can do. You can pay attention to what your children or other children are doing, and no matter what's coming out of their mouth, if you can read their face, you have the upper hand because you know the truth. Yeah, I was a tough mom.
Yeah, and for here too, you're able to construct certain questions in order to find out exactly which way their eyes move, because this is just for a typical right-handed person. It's not set in stone that everybody's eyes are going to move like this. So to find out if somebody's visual constructing, that means they're lying, they're making it up, they're looking into the future. Where it's not, they're not recalling it. So a visual constructor would be, what color would your car look like if it was purple? They would visually construct that. And then now you know which way is looking into the future, which way they're lying, when their eyes look a certain way. Yeah.
Can you go back to step 4? There was on the report building, there was so much information there. And I thought you said something about predicate phrases. I don't know what that is.
All right, the predicate phrases go hand in hand with the representational systems, the VAK, the visual, audio, kinesthetic. Predicate phrases are the I see, the I hear, I feel, oh, it makes sense. It's just the phrases that the people that are, what their representational system is, those are the phrases that they're going to be saying. And you want to repeat those back to them.
Quick question, does everybody here know what they are? If you're a visual, a kinesthetic, or an oral, or... how many visuals?
Video guy's a visual.
Yeah.
Okay, visual is the most common. How many kinesthetic? Okay, touch. And how many oral?
Auditory.
Auditory, yeah. Don't want to mess up with the word when you're auditory.
We know what you're visualizing there, Keith.
You're a visual guy, aren't
Very much.
And he doesn't like to listen.
Have you ever worked with anybody who closes their eyes when they're thinking? So you know.
I haven't worked with anybody, but I wouldn't doubt that there's people out there. I see people they'll talk with their eyes closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So is that more auditory and kinesthetic?
I have no idea. I would have to look that up for you and let you know.
I would say likely kinesthetic, but you could make a guess it's kinesthetic, but then check it out.
Yeah. Maybe they're just so visual that they don't even want to look anymore. I have no idea. I'd have to look that up.
Have you run into that?
Yeah.
And what was your guess?
I don't know.
Hard to guess.
Yeah.
I have some insight on that. My husband does that. And that really, really bothered me for a long time. So I started doing some research when I was working in my psychology classes. And it's common for people who have been struck by lightning because they're trying to find the words. That part of their brain is usually when it's get fried out. And he got struck twice.
Oh.
So,
And then he married you?
That was
So I talked to him about it. He said he's trying to find the words. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
So it's kind of a way for the brain to catch up to where the thoughts are heading.
Right. Now, to say, that's common with people who have been struck by lightning, but that may not be the overall answer.
But I think it's also more kinesthetic, because kinesthetics want to feel it.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they find the words for it. Speaking
They have to
as
interpret.
kinesthetic.
Cool.
Jody?
So So Lucas, you shared a ton of information, and I can't write it down fast enough. How would we, or what's the easiest way, or the quickest way to start implementing the information that you shared
Right, to pretty much start implementing the information that you learned today?
today? Yeah.
Baby steps. By taking this all on at once, you're gonna fail. Just because there's so much information to remember everything, so it's one thing at a time. Start, instead of trying to match people's breathing, just simply notice it. Like, okay, they're exhaling now. They're inhaling. They're exhaling. And then after you get good at that, then start looking at the location. It might take a week to do each one. Okay, now they're inhaling from their stomach. This person's inhaling from their abdomen, their chest. And then if you want to start with the eyes, just say, okay, well, the eyes went up, visual. The eyes went to the sides, auditory. The eyes went down, kinesthetic. So just notice it. You don't have to understand, like, try to figure out what it is that they're trying to process. Just start noticing that and start implementing everything one thing at a time. Give it a day to a week until you're comfortable with it enough to move on to the next.
Do you teach people? You teach people how to do this, right?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share your PowerPoint with us?
I could. I believe that this is going to be on YouTube, on the Wisconsin Business Owners.
And in the meantime, just to get it out very quickly on Wisconsin Business Owners, we have a discussion forums. Would you kindly share them there?
I can do that.
Cool.
I'll have to do a little research on how to do it, but I can do that.
2 minutes of us chatting, and not only will you have it done, you'll make a video about how to do it.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, there's just so much great stuff.
Yes.
I think that, and Jody asked the question, how do you get started on this thing? The two most important parts of this that I get, and they're both challenges for me. Number one is getting to know quickly. And I think most of us can look back on occasions where we have talked to somebody and tried to talk ourselves into believing that they are in need of our services when they're not, for whatever reason. And I know I have wasted hours that have gone into weeks on projects where you need to get to know fast. The second most important thing out of this, out of all of these, and they're all great items, is number 10, be quiet. When you've gotten to the point where you have finished everything that you need to present, shut up. And literally, like Lucas said, somebody's going to talk first, and it will not be you. And, you know, the awkwardness, you know, doesn't last all that long. It seems like forever. But then, as soon as they start to talk, they're going to help you determine where you need to go to get this deal done. But those are two big takeaways.
And the follow-up to that shut up part is when they're writing the check, continue to shut up.
How many times have people, you know, whether you were as a kid trying to sell something and you just keep talking until finally somebody says, you know, you need to stop talking or you're going to talk yourself out of the sale. And just learning, you don't have, okay, you got me. Well, at that point, shut up. Next words out of your mouth, thank you. And who else do you know wants to buy a car?
Do you offer coaching on this, one-on-one coaching?
I do. Just talk to me afterwards.
Okay, and will you be offering maybe a group coaching thing where you might take 4 or 5 people at a time?
I would do group coaching. Done.
I'm not in business for myself, but I've failed at everything that I've ever done in sales. But the thing that I got out of this the most, my wife and I are timeshare hustlers. We've been to over 200 timeshare presentations. And the biggest, what's that?
That's a lot of free dinners.
You betcha. $20,000 worth.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point I got here, because we waste all this time trying to overcome your objections. The biggest point I got here is figure out if they don't want you, move on. Kiss them goodbye, because it could cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. If I keep pushing, it could cost you money. It obviously wastes your time. And it's going to leave a bad taste in the person's mouth. Either they're not going to like you anymore, or they're just going to tell people how bad of a salesperson you are. Don't buy from this business just because of you keep pushing.
I've got a question, because I've read elsewhere that until you get the third no, the person's really saying maybe. So how does this go with that idea?
This is just taking the no straight out. If they say no, a no is a no. You thank them and you move on.
And I also disagree, because in intangible B2B sales, it's 4 or 5 no's to get to a yes. So when I hear the no, I break it down into overcoming that objection, getting past that, and it's not a no to the overall. It's it's that individual no, isolating it, overcoming it, and then, but being prepared to. Well, I hear what you're saying. You don't want to do that. I respect that. And the last ditch effort is on the way out. Just turn back and saying, what was it that? Why was it that you said no anyhow?
Yeah, you can ask.
And like you're on your way, and when they share with you, you say, well, Brian Tracy's example was a landscaping plan he went to sell, and he showed them the plan, the quote, and they were going to do the landscape companies were going to do all the planting, and the people were very abrupt, said, no, we won't have anything, and as he was packing up, went out the door, turned around and said, well, why was it that you said no? And they said, we're not going to spend a dollar over $7,000. Well, his quote was for like $7,015. And when he heard that, he just, let me show you something. And he went back in, rolled out the plan, and said, we can reduce the size of this plant here and this plant here, and we'll come in at $6,990. And they said, sure, good. So, that's...
Understanding the no.
Yeah, and not just take a no for an answer, because most yeses come after 4 or 5 no's.
I think you got to distinguish two different things, though. If I'm meeting somebody and they say, "What do you do?" and I say, "This is what I do," is that something you'd be interested in? If they say no, then it's probably not something they'd be interested in. If I make an appointment and I make a presentation,
right,
and now Joe Schlitt is saying no, I'm going to dig and dig and dig and dig to find out, okay, you brought me in here, you're willing to listen, so now help me. What's my problem?
Sure, that
and
really...
I think that's it. So I think it's a different level of no and
right.
a different level of service.
Without question, you're doing a general, are you interested in taking a look at, and it's not just in what you do, but in getting a solid return with a fairly, less significant risk than you'll get in most places, to couch it that way. Or the other thing is, a lot of us, I think, do intangible sales like you and I, where we're selling ideas or methods or what have you. In the tangible world, if you're selling wash machines and they say, no, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Or if I'm selling cars, it's like, well, tell me why. And they say, because I want a convertible. Well, then, obviously they're going to say no to everything else.
Any other questions, takeaways, comments, concerns?
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you.
Oh.